When I hit this tape deck, it's all gonna start.
Get ready.
Woo! Goddamn right. Yeah. Everyone ready for this shit? Man, this about to get all Baghdad and shit. Heads up! Grabbing pills. I know one thing. I'm grabbing pills. Grabbing a shotgun. Shoot the clown. Thank Jesus. It's down. Boy, we straight? We're gonna be okay. Hold up now. Look alive. We're getting close to the mall.
We're at a plantation.
Chew on that! Oh, shit! Back it up! Yeah, baby! Hit it! Grab and puke! Incoming! Heads up!
Oh, this stuff sucks.
Oh, yeah. Anyone need some pills? Oh, hell. We'll set some things right with this shit. Pow! Smack you some bitches. Gonna go all akimbo and shit. That was some epic shit right there.
You hear the screeching of an owl, you hear the wind begin to howl. You know there's zombies on the prowl, and it's terror time again. They've got you running through the night. It's terror time again, and you just might die of fright. It's a terrifying time. You hear the beating of your heart, you know the screaming's gonna start. Here comes the really scary part, 'cause it's terror time again. They've got you running through the night. It's terror time again. Oh, you just might die of fright. It's a terrifying time. All the trees begin to moan, and the monsters grunt and groan, rotting faces full of slime. Don't you know it's terror time? And it's terror time again. They've got you running through the night. Yes, it's terror time again. Oh, you just might die of fright. It's a terrifying time. It's terror time again. They've got you running through the night. It's terror time again.
Okay, there we go. Okay, that might be a little loud. For some reason, I put on my headset and it turned off my mic. So anyways, yeah, I had to turn off the light there because that was a little too bright. But today, let me know if the music is too loud. I can turn it down. At least hope if I can. I'll turn it down a little bit. Alright, so hope you guys are having a wonderful day. Mirdus, what's up? Dusty Pete, DK, Friendly, everybody. So today, yeah, we're doing a mic check. I had to clear up some stuff about the cat. Can't see her, but she's over here. We are going to be doing this. Let's see. We gotta remember how to do my own damn camera. Should be this. Oop, that is not the right one. There we go. $5. Thank you, Lemotaku, for the $5 donation. Maria Ann, good to see you. Long-time supporter. So we are going to be ranking every single chapter of Left 4 Dead 1 and 2. The canon chapters, so Coldstream will not be included. So everything, I did screw up. I did not put the finale for Dead Air, but we will discuss that when we get there. But we're just going to go chronologically, and yeah. So if you guys have any input, I will be including streams input. You can't see the stream chat, but yes. You get to have the donation finally pop in. Took a while.
Here, you silly goose.
Thank you. Alright, so the way we're going to be ranking them is I kind of am doing it from a versus perspective because that's where I put a lot more of my time. You know what? I do need music. It's just too quiet. I need something chill. Here we go. I think that'll work. But yes, so we're going to be starting with No Mercy Chapter 1. That's where Left 4 Dead started, originated. Dude, so when you think of Left 4 Dead, you can't think without how No Mercy started everything. When Turtle Rock originally had their demos and stuff. Don't be mean to Dead Center. That's all I ask. True. So but first chapter of No Mercy kind of embodies everything about Left 4 Dead, because even with the Left 4 Dead 2 Special Infected included, it has everything you need. You start off from a rooftop and you have to go through condensed hallways. You're exposed to the zombies or infected for the first time. You go down the hotel, or not the hotel, the apartment complex, and then go out in the middle of the streets where you're out in the open. So you go from really condensed area to being out in the open. You have your first glance at what a car alarm is, and then you go underground. But honestly, it's a really short chapter for what it's worth if you're able to just speedrun it. But honestly, there's just a lot of twists and turns. I wouldn't call it the best, but at the same time, I'm stuck between S and A tier. If it was a little bit longer, I would consider it S tier, but A tier is where I would put it. It's short and sweet, but I feel like it could have had a little more. It's funny because as many times as I've done the chapter, there's also that side route you can take. As soon as you come out from the alleyway and there's the street with the cop car there, you could go straight forward and take like an L shape that way instead of cutting through the pills. But there's literally no point in going that way unless you're just bored, because why would you go that way instead of getting pills? So there is some diversity to it. There's not a lot of that in Left 4 Dead levels where you can actually take a completely different path, but it's so off the beaten path. But yeah. Then we have the second chapter where we go through the subways. I'm going to turn this music down a little more. So the subway chapter, what do you guys think of that one? Honestly, I think it's not too bad of a chapter. You start off and you go through the crumbled ground, and you just go down the staircase. It's a bit of a clusterfuck because people don't know where to go half the time. You go through the vents and whatnot. It makes it pretty interesting. I need to add some more music on the list. I'll just do this for now. But honestly, the subways aren't too bad because I feel like there's a lot of variety to it. And honestly, there's a lot of scenic routes there. I wouldn't say it's the best either. Everyone's saying B. Yeah, it's not a bad thing because there's a lot you could do. You go underground, go down the stairs, go through the subways. Then you go up, you have to turn on the turbine so you can open the door. Then you go out in the middle of the street. Honestly, compared to the first chapter, to go from that chapter to this is so freaking long. Yeah, I would put it in the B tier. It's not the worst. It's just a stark contrast from what you have to do beforehand. So after that is the sewers. Now this is even ramping up even more to it just being so freaking long. So you go, there's the safe room and there's the alleyway. We talked about like alternate paths you can take, like in the first chapter of No Mercy. Let me turn down the music, that's fine. But you could take either pathway. You could get the tier 2 guns, or you could just straightforward go to the restaurant. I think that's honestly pretty good level design, because you can either get really good weapons or you could just cut straight through the level. You get a little variety depending on what choices you want to make. If you want to speed run through it, you won't have as good at guns. You have the gas station, which you can blow up. You could get friendly fire and team kill your teammates with the gas station. It's fantastic. I love going through it. It is a clusterfuck starting the horde with the scissor lift, but there's a lot of things you can do. You have a lot of options. You can either just book it, run through it, go on the rooftop and just try to defeat the horde. You could sit in the corner and just wait out the horde. It's not a crescendo, so it's not an endless gauntlet. Or they did kind of have an Easter egg to where if you go backwards, if you go over the destroyed roof of the gas station, backtrack and a garage opens up earlier in the level that you can also post up in and get some more supplies. So there's a lot of avenues you can take with that. And then once that part is over with, you go through the warehouse. You actually go to the sewers, which, funnily enough, most of the level that is called sewers barely takes place in the sewers. You climb up. The sewers can be kind of a maze, but it's not too bad. Go up, get to the hospital. But honestly, I would consider it an A tier because of just the amount of variety that you're allowed to have in that chapter. The campaign reviews, I don't think I'll ever be going back to those. That was just a different part of my channel, different lifetime. But I did do all the Left 4 Dead 1 maps. So we're going to the hospital now. Honestly, I really, really like the hospital. It's really condensed. It's really claustrophobic for most of the experience. Going down each of the hallways. So your first time going through, it's been, God, 15 years since I played that chapter for the first time, so I can't really tell you. I know exactly how to get through it. But it's honestly great. The visual storytelling of just how things broke out in that hospital. People think it's like the origin point of the outbreak of the green flu epidemic. And just going through it, everything's pretty cool. I wouldn't really have any issues with it. I do like the fact that in this level and the next level, some of the common infected are dressed in hospital garbs where their ass is showing. That's another great part of just like having the level design incorporated into the NPCs that you run into. I think that's great. And it's really cool that you have to wait at the elevator and you have again a bunch of different options on how to take on the horde before the elevator arrives. Everyone usually goes to the same room, but before we knew about that, you would run backwards, you'd stay at the elevator, and it's just the fact that zombies can break down tons of the walls, so they could be coming from any angle. They could come from the vent above. It's really cool. And then you go up top, and in versus mode, that's when it really ramps up. Don't get me started on the elevator, by the way. This game's 15 years old, and they still can't get that elevator right. You're still going to lag through that floor, or if the host's connection isn't the best. I had a game a couple weeks ago where everyone just lagged to the floor and died. So, honestly, for many games, that would be a complaint, but I think that's the funniest shit. So, that's another plus for that level. You get to the rooftop, and it's just Charger hell. I like that there's a part of the hospital that's still under construction, so it kind of opens up the atmosphere because it's been so closed off. So it ends up being, honestly, it's one of my favorite level. It's my favorite level of No Mercy, that's for sure. I honestly would put it in the S tier. It is really good. I don't mind playing through it on any kind of avenue. It always does pretty well. Now we're going to go to our first finale. For the first finale of the Left 4 Dead franchise, I think it did pretty well. And honestly, it's another short and sweet one, which a lot of the finales are going to be. It never happens on PC. I beg to differ. I've played many, many games on PC as well. But this finale, It feels like they put a lot of their chips in with No Mercy. Like, a lot of the best levels there. I'm not being biased because Dead Air is my favorite campaign. But it feels like a lot of their best ideas came in with No Mercy. So, you start off in the second to top floor, and you have to work your way up. And then you get up there, call the helicopter, and then you just fight off. And it's honestly a really good arena to fight in. You have to be really careful because you are all the way on top of a tower, so you can't get knocked off by a tank. You do have the mounted turret, and you have all the different... You can be on the rooftops of the rooftop where all the supplies are, go to the pipes. You have different ways you can post up. There's usually grenades on the left-hand side, on that little pillar there. You have a lot of different options there. And honestly... that's not the case for a lot of finales, because if you played Left 4 Dead enough, you would know there's at least 1 or 2 spots that you post up in, and that's the deadline, that's the dead case. You're always going to go there. I feel like No Mercy has 3 or 4. You can, I mean, in Versus, it's always the same spot, but on Campaign, I feel like you have more options for that. I wouldn't say it's S tier. Honestly, the atmosphere is great. But honestly, I'd put it in the A tier. I feel like it could be better if there was a little bit more to the rooftop. There were pictures and screenshots of the beta version of No Mercy where it was more dark and there was a little bit more going on the rooftop. If it had been that, maybe that would have been S tier, but I can't speak in what ifs. I've never seen anybody fall through the elevator. Dude, I mean, go look at my... one of my second most recent video where it was off-stream fails and funny moments. The fact that 3 of my teammates fell to the ground was funny as hell. But now we're getting into what is objectively, in my opinion, the worst campaign that Left 4 Dead ever produced. The history of Crash Course is just awful. So Left 4 Dead 2 was already fully in production when Crash Course was released. Back in the old Microsoft days. They made it a rule because Left 4 Dead, Valve was making all the DLC for Left 4 Dead free. But Microsoft was like, we're going to charge you have to charge 800 Microsoft points, which was $10 in US currency. And I was so hyped. I was living at my aunt's house. I was so hyped for the game to release. I wanted to play more campaign and more versus. And apparently Crash Course was created solely with the idea of versus in mind. That's why a lot of the achievements involved with Crash Course involve versus. But then we get just 2 chapters, and they're extremely long, and they're not fun to go through. They say they have versus in mind, but then you make just 2 chapters that are extremely long, and if you get just busted in the beginning of one of them, the point differential is just not there. And that was back in Left 4 Dead 1, where if 4 people survive, you get 4 times the amount of points. The difference in Left 4 Dead 1 versus and Left 4 Dead 2 versus Left 4 Dead 1, if 4 people survived, you get 4 times the amount of points. There wasn't about distance. It was about how many people survived. So if everyone died, you pretty much got no points. So you made a Crash Course, a campaign where it was almost impossible to make it to the end in Versus. So that's my rant on Crash Course, but this is the only legitimate DLC that Left 4 Dead 1 got, besides The Sacrifice, which is just Left 4 Dead 2, but with less content. And then The Last Stand, which it was just a showcase for survival. So it was the only legitimate DLC for Left 4 Dead 1. The first chapter, it starts off okay, but it just goes on and on and on. It's going D tier. I'm putting both Crash Courses in D tier. Crash Course in general is just garbage. It is just freaking garbage. Thank you, VN Robbie. How can Hospital be S tier and Rooftop not? Like I said, I feel like the finale just needed a little bit more. But Crash Course, yeah, no. I have too much negativity towards it. The only time we ever play it is because we get bored. If I've played for 6 months straight, and I'll be like, okay, maybe it's time for Crash Course because everyone's tired and this will go by quickly. But going on to Death Toll, the vibe of Death Toll is great. It feels like one of those genuine horror movie vibes in a small town. And you start off at a really cool spot. You start off on the street, kind of like a Silent Hill looking area. You go forward, there's a destroyed bridge that you have two options. You can go on the left side, right side to climb up the ladder, or you could do like my dumbass does and try to jump the gap, which is possible, but half the time I end up falling down and either dying or insta-incapping myself. But at least you have that option that was unintended by the developers. But to cut through the tunnels, and the tunnels are fun to go through, you have options to go in little side areas, go over cars, and then you go into the water treatment thing, go up the hill. It's not bad, but honestly, I have this problem with that and Blood Harvest, the whole small town vibe and going through tunnels and sewers. It gets old and it gets kind of repetitive. The environments kind of just repeat themselves. I wouldn't say it's the worst. I think the beginning of Death Toll, this chapter especially, is not bad. I like playing through it a lot, so I would say it's either B or C. What do you guys think, B or C? S for chat? No. It's definitely not an S tier one. That's not something I'm like, ooh, I definitely want to play that one. It starts off strong, but it kind of meanders near the end. But the middle, yeah, I'd say most of chat is saying B. One guy really wants it to be S. It's not the worst. Honestly, it starts off strong enough to where it kind of snowballs and keeps the momentum. This one, however, I did a lot of tank runs, and a lot of my runs died in I think it's called The Drains, Chapter 2 of Death Toll. Now, thank you for the donation. Don't forget that Dead Center is S tier. We'll get to that once we actually get past Left 4 Dead 1, but maybe the money will sway my opinion. I'm a sellout. But, yeah, I'm not a big fan. I'm trying to think of where you start. Yeah, you start in the sewers. I gotta forget the donations. I'll just wait. Come on. Is it not gonna say it? Okay. But honestly, it's just going to the sewers, and then I do like the crescendo, not the crescendo event, but where you start the floodgates to get across. It's okay, but I'm not a fan of when there's a lot of water everywhere. There's only one campaign that utilizes the water effectively, but I'm just not a fan of this chapter. Honestly, it's a lot with this chapter, and the next one I forget about it except for key moments. I'd say C tier. It's not the worst, but it's just very forgetful. And the giant sewer room is cool, where it's kind of, the environment's cool, and the way that you have options, you can either go left or right, that takes you down, or you can get up above and go down the ladder. But nah. Now the church, that's a whole different thing. So I'm sick of sewers at this point. Left 4 Dead has this raging hard-on for doing sewers and stuff, but we finally get to the cities, and we finally get to the small town aesthetic. But wait, what does this say? Do you prefer any Back 4 Blood campaigns? No, over Left 4 Dead. Besides Crash Course, Back 4 Blood had, like TK saying, there is a museum level that's really cool. I think they did really great, and now Back 4 Blood's no more, so it kind of sucks. But the church, everyone remembers the church for honestly, the church guy. Him just saying, better safe than sorry, better safe than sorry. You cut through the town, you jump down from the church to go, wait, no, that's chapter 4, I'm getting ahead of myself. But yeah, just cutting through all the areas, going through the town is really nice. I really like it. Just because solely the ending of this chapter is so memorable, and honestly, the way you just open the safe room door and he'll be one of the 3 special infected at the time, the Hunter, Smoker, or Boomer, is really funny. I know people say there's like a 1% chance it could be a Tinker Witch. I don't know if that's true. I don't think he can become a witch, because, yeah. But I would say, yeah, I'd put it in the A tier, because just the ending alone is one of the key moments in the Left 4 Dead franchise. It's fantastic. Now, the town level of Death Toll Chapter 4, I will say there's not much memorable about it. I love going through small towns, and the aesthetic is great. You start off in the church top, And when you're not playing in versus, it's really fun to just get the hunting rifle and pick infected from the top. It makes you feel like it's you ever watched Dawn of the Dead 2004 where they're just popping zombies from the top of the mall? That's what it makes me feel like, and I like that. It's really fun. The zombies don't get, someone's going to say infected, fuck off with that. But it's just fun to go through. The town is really good to go through. You can cut through buildings as you wish, and then you have to go up to the top, and you have to get past the barricade by using a forklift, bringing it down. Now, I will say, when they ported that map to Left 4 Dead 2 and made that a crescendo, that area as a crescendo with how wide it is usually, it turns into this wide area that condenses into this. You have to go up a staircase, you have to go across down here, you have to go across a rooftop, and if you get pulled by a smoker or hit by a jockey or charger, then you have to go all the way back around. It's really freaking annoying, and you can tell it was not made with Left 4 Dead 2 in mind, because of course it wasn't. It was made in Left 4 Dead 1, but for that to be a crescendo, I am not a fan of that second half of the map. And because of that, I'm going to have to put it in C tier. Maybe B or C. Because I do like it. B for the atmosphere. You know, the atmosphere is great. But, man, that second half, I cannot stand it. Death Toll is great and whatnot, but my God. That second half always pisses me off. But for the finale, the Boathouse finale, honestly, it's kind of ridiculous how long or how big of a stretch it is just to get to the finale for this chapter. Because you start off, you're still in the streets, you're in the neighborhood, you have to cut through that house, you have to go through this giant backyard, up a hill, go down, all the way to the boathouse. It's obnoxiously long to get there, and it still feels like part of chapter 4. What they were like, okay, chapter 4 is too long, let's cut part of it and then just smush it. It's like Patrick, let's take part of this chapter and push it somewhere else. It feels like that. But yeah, ending is max. If it started sooner, I would say it would be up in the A tier. I'd probably say B tier. It's still a great finale. Honestly, no, even with that extension, would I say, would it be B tier? Honestly, it's probably one of the better Left 4 Dead 1 finales, because I don't think any other finale gives you the options. Oh no, that's not the case. Left 4 Dead 2 finales are pretty bad about picking one spot and just sticking there, unless it's gas cans. But you can stay up in the boathouse. You can go to the end of the dock, especially in Left 4 Dead 1 where there were no chargers. Or you could go, there's another separate house that's way out there that has supplies. It does have options. Honestly, though, I'm going to stick it in B tier. It's pretty mid. I wouldn't complain about playing it. But comparative to a lot of other chapters and finales, yeah. Now we're going to my favorite campaign in Left 4 Dead 1, which is Dead Air. I think it keeps a consistent tone throughout. I love cityscapes in a zombie apocalypse. That's my favorite place to go. Does Last Stand count in this? No. So we're going to be doing canon campaign chapters only, so no Coldstream and none of the Last Stand stuff, which kudos to them for doing it, but just stuff that was a part of the Left 4 Dead series canon. Now, we start off in the greenhouse, which is an awesome way to showcase to people when you're first playing. You go over the hill and you see all the commons down there. Now, it does take them a while to get under you and break the door, so it gives you time to it gives you time to shoot them down, get a feel of shooting them. I don't think any other chapter, when it starts off, gives the player freedom to you get a good feel for shooting and killing off the infected at a long range. Because, let's see, No Mercy, it kind of just, you go forward, you're in these cramped hallways and the commons are there, so they're already in your face. Death Toll, they're on the street, and you start shooting, they're coming out from the trees. But with Dead Air, you do have the opportunity to just kind of pick them off, get comfortable, and also you have 4 Molotovs, 4 pipe bombs, so you can also have a showcase of how the grenades work. You throw the pipe bomb, you can see all the infected swarm it. So there's just a lot that gets you comfortable and also gets you adequately supplied. And then you go through the rooftops. It's honestly a really short level. Unless you're playing versus, then you have to really, really, really be careful because there's that little plank you have to go across on the first rooftop. Get across, then you have to go up the ladder, and there's a rooftop where you can get charged. Honestly, I really like playing it because there is a lot of chaos that can happen. Because when you go through that window and there's the rooftop where you can get charged off, you go up the ladder, there's a what I call point of no return, where if you jump from the rooftop, there is no going back. So if someone gets pulled, there's no saving them. You go down the 18-wheeler, there's a car alarm there. You get a little bit of everything that Left 4 Dead is infamous for. You have insta-kills, you have point of no returns, you have the car alarm, shows a lot of the grenades if you're playing on campaign. There's a lot to it. Honestly, for what it's worth, I'm going to put it in S tier because there's just so much to it that I think showcases what Left 4 Dead's all about. Even during Left 4 Dead 1, where you could get the hunter on top of the hotel, and before they patched the hunter to where you could only do 25 maximum damage from a pounce, people used to go up there and do maximum 100 damage pounces. But it's honestly the best start to a campaign I've seen yet, and I hope it continues that. But in Chapter 2, The Crane, it's pretty cool. You start off in the building, and then you go out, and there's the construction yard. You have to hop the fence, go up, and then work your way through the apartments. It's really creative how they made it go through it. You get on the truck, go up the ladder, up the fire escape. You can go through the apartment buildings. You can check each room for supplies or not. You do have the options. You could probably find supplies. These usually like a Molotov or pills lying around. You go up, and then you have to lower the crane to get across. Now, while you lower the crane, you can go back inside. You can sit on top of the crane. And once you get across there, it's just all these rooftops. It's fun to maneuver through all the buildings. How did the Left 4 Dead 1 get... That's another thing. I will dial back to the first chapter. I still don't understand how the hell they ended up in the greenhouse. There was supposed to be a chapter called Damn It that bridged the gap between Death Toll and Dead Air. Never released, but they did release it as a custom campaign. But honestly, it still doesn't make sense how they ended up there. But honestly, Chapter 2 is not all that bad. It is extremely long, though, because once you get past that crane, past the horde, you have to go to the building, go down like 3 flights of office suites. And at that point, especially when you're playing on Versus, you feel so fatigued. You're like, it's still going. Holy hell. So it does feel a little too long. I was going to put it in the A tier, but thinking about the second half and how I feel at the end of it each time, I will say B because it's just a little too long. Now, speaking of stuff that is a bit too long for me to handle, construction site is another one. You start off with the 2-story safe room. You can scout out. You can go around the storage units, and usually there's supplies, but that is such a way off the beaten path that I would not recommend it. So going forward, you have to go... They included a fence you have to hop over once they ported it to Left 4 Dead 2 to give it some variety. But I do like the fact that when you're in the construction site, you have a lot of options because you shoot the gas cans, and instead of it just summoning a horde, you have to wait. Because usually when you summon a horde in these kinds of maps, you have to just... You can either blitzkrieg or whatnot, but this one forces you to bunker down and wait for the fire to destroy the barricade. So you can either stay up where all the supplies are, you can go into the concrete foundations. There are a lot of places you can post up in that is really enjoyable. And I think the reason they included the fence when they did Left 4 Dead 2 is because people would go all the way back to the safe room and just post up there. So they did update it to where you can't just cheese it, which is... It's fair enough. I'm okay with them getting rid of cheese spots like that, especially when it comes to Versus. It's not fun to deal with that kind of, oh, we got to do the exact same thing every time. So I do appreciate the horde having some variety in what you do as a survivor. But after that, you have to just keep going down areas, and then you go through the electrical grids. It feels like it's another one where it's the second half. I really enjoy the first half, and then it just kind of goes downhill. The power plant that you have to go through, I'm not a big fan of. But once you get to the airport area where all the cars are, there's car alarms, you have to go up. That part is fine. I just wish the electrical power plant part was kind of like chopped out, and we just got to the parking garage a lot sooner. I think if it was that, I would have been able to put it in the A tier, but honestly, it's another B tier for me. Now, the airport, I do really enjoy the airport. It's like I said, it's my favorite campaign. You start off on the up tops and you just go around and you kind of go in the back alleys for a while. Not the back alleys, but the offices. You go down, then you have to start the truck to get through, and then you have the crescendo event to get through. Not too bad. The crescendo event can be a slog though, because if you have seen my Why is Dead Air So Easy to Speedrun, you would know my feelings on this chapter, because it was never programmed to handle the mutation. Now, originally, there is the metal detector. In Left 4 Dead 1, the metal detector was not mandatory. It was just something, if you happened to walk through it, it would go off, but you could avoid it. Well, when Left 4 Dead 2 happened, they made it to where you were forced to go through it. So there are 2 crescendo events that you have to get through. And honestly, that makes that chapter a slog. I preferred it to where the metal detector was, it kind of rewarded you. I remember in Left 4 Dead 1 Versus, you could be a smoker and try to pull someone through it. It was extremely rewarding if you could pull that off, but now it's, everyone's forced to go through it. We have a second horde, and it's going to be hell trying to get to that safe room. So, yet another case of, I would have put it in A tier, but the second half just gets slogged down with just a beatdown. If you don't run a melee in Left 4 Dead 2, it sucks. Yeah, you have to run a melee through this level. If you don't have a melee weapon, you're kind of screwing yourself over, because you are just going to be bogged down by infected. Now, I forgot to program in the Dead Air finale. But honestly, Dead Air finale is S tier. I think it's another great showcase of what Left 4 Dead's all about. You go out, and unlike Death Toll's finale, where you have to just constantly walk and walk and walk, you're out on the ramp. You have to jump down. The second you jump down, you see an airplane crash right in front of you. The way the sheer noise, the violence of it just erupting into the ground is so freaking cool, and the reactions of the survivors is sick. And you're like, okay, let's go ahead and hop an airplane, even though we just saw that. And it's not even a long walk to get there. You cut through a bunch of downed planes, and then you start up the fuel tank, and there is so many ways for you to... There's so many options of where you can go for this finale as well. Now, in Left 4 Dead 1, there was a corner that everyone went to because there was no way for the infected to surprise attack you. So the way they circumvented this was just adding a lot of flames there, that if you sit in those flames, they do increased damage, kind of like the flames in the first chapter of Dead Center on the bottom floor. So now you can either go to the corner where there's the roof above, which everyone goes to as well in Versus, but honestly, there's a lot of options there too. I think it's an S tier finale. I really like it. The plane crash alone sells it to me. It's all about atmosphere as well. Now we're going into Blood Harvest. That's another case of how the hell did they land there? They don't mention... So, if you didn't know, Left 4 Dead 1 campaigns were all made as separate stories and were never meant to be a continuous timeline. They were meant to be just parodies of horror movies, and then about 6-7 months in, they're like, oh, let's make Crash Course to bridge the gaps between them. They're all connected in some way. So, the fact that they were in Dead Air and somehow got to Blood Harvest and don't mention anything about parachuting down or the plane crashing, kind of like when you think of Dark Carnival to Swamp Fever, it's just like, it wasn't infected. He was a zombie, Ellis. Well, he was our only pilot. We didn't get any of that with Blood Harvest. But, honestly, Blood Harvest's beginning is great. The fact that you're out in the middle of the woods and infected can come from the trees at any moment, I think that's really cool, scary. You got to think of it, if it's your first time playing through as well as playing for your 200th time. It's a short level, but you just go over a couple hills. You go across the bridge. The bridge is a really cool set piece. I really like it, and it makes for a very interesting versus mode. You get across, there's the little trailer there. You go. It's hard to explain much because it's just a bunch of woods until you find a building. But honestly, I'd put it in the A tier. It's not the worst. It's not the best. It's not S tier. But I enjoy playing it. Now, I have a hard time remembering the names of all these. So let's see. You get to the end. How did Blood Harvest end there? Oh, that's right. So the second chapter of Blood Harvest, you start off in the building, and there's that giant warehouse. Honestly, it's not the worst. It's pretty cool. You go out in the hallways, you go, and there's the window, and you see the warehouse floor. I like it. You can accidentally fall down, take damage. That whole wide open area, it does give you the option. I'm going to say option a lot because that's just my vocabulary right now. But you do have to open the emergency door that starts a horde to progress. Now, you can either stay in that little small room where the infected can come from the vent above, or you can go in the giant area, go up top, post up, take off infected, or hide behind some cargo boxes, or you could just blitzkrieg through. This is a really, really fun level to just blitzkrieg through. It's another relatively short one if you just rush, because you go through the warehouse, you go outside, and you go through the trains, and then you just get to the end. It's honestly a lot shorter than I always think of. It feels like it should be. I played it for, over a decade, and it still feels like it's a longer map than it is. I wouldn't call it maybe B tier, because honestly I do enjoy playing it. Yeah, I'll just put it in B. B's not the worst. It's one of my favorite chapters to rush through, though, because everyone does it. There's just something about the way it's just this big area, and then you have just this tunnel vision way of the map. You go forward, it's not so bad. It's fun to rush through. Now, The Bridge, Chapter 3 of Blood Harvest. I'm trying to think of how that one starts. Because Blood Harvest, it's as fun as it is, a lot of the progression in it is forgettable to me. I like the part where you start the cart, and there's a little building there for you to get pills and stuff, and you take down the bridge. This is another case of when it was adapted to Left 4 Dead 2 and the Endless Horde. This part, it feels like it's impossible for someone not to die, because you have to go up that damn bridge and hope there's not a charger there. This is another case of this was made with Left 4 Dead 1 in mind. So go up this ramp while there's just hundreds of infected coming at you. Hope there's not a charger. But even then, there is a giant drop-off on the hill. So if you get jockeyed or smokered in that chaos, a charger could follow up on it. It's really rare for someone not to go down or die, and it's not worth it to pick that person up because the horde does not freaking stop. So it's very chaotic, and I do appreciate those, especially when you're playing as an infected, but I barely remember the first half. It's just a really, really forgettable chapter besides taking down that bridge. But it is just chaos, and it was not a level that was made for Left 4 Dead 2, but who's playing Left 4 Dead 1? I think of this in the Left 4 Dead 2 scope, so I'm putting this in the C tier. It's not bad, it's not the worst, but it's not a chapter I enjoy going through most of the time. Except the cows. Yeah, the cows are pretty cool. I do like that as a set design. Now, you go up there. Okay, Chapter 4. Now, I think this is the most forgettable chapter for me in Left 4 Dead 1 besides Crash Course chapters. Yeah, you go through the train yard. The first half, you just go through the tunnels, you get outside. I'm trying to visualize Blood Harvest in my head right now. So bear with me. Thinking of Blood Harvest, you go forward. Wait, what's the end there, Boom? Okay, it's just a wide open area of woods, and then there's the barn. You jump down, you go through it's kind of like a train house, warehouse thing. And then you go out, and then there's the hill with the cabin. Then you have to go past the cabin, because honestly, that cabin on the hill is so freaking confusing. I'm the Left 4 Dead YouTuber guy. I have spent too much time on this game. I have no life going into this game, and every time I go into that cabin and I'm like, how the hell do I progress? They made it to where you have to go underneath it on that hill where it doesn't look like you're supposed to do that. And it's honestly one of the only times where it's just confusing to progress. And then you get to the end and you have to go up to that second flight. There is a really cool set piece. I will say, I would have put this in D tier, but there is a really cool set piece in the building right before you get to the bridge for the crescendo event. Is that lawnmower where it looks like it chopped up an infected. That is really cool. That's one of my favorite pieces of visual storytelling in Left 4 Dead 1. Visual storytelling being like, oh, here's something that happened. You're like, oh, Jesus Christ. So that is really cool. That's just something that I really would want to see. I like gore in video games and shit. But that is really cool. I'll put it in C tier just for that fact. But that ending where you have to go down a straight line with common infected, it's honestly not the hardest, but a lot can happen with them spawning above and whatnot. And don't forget about the oven. Yeah, the oven has killed me at the beginning and ruined my runs before. Looks like someone didn't clean up. Okay, so now when I was talking about Death Toll's finale, I was talking about how long it takes to get there. Blood Harvest has that issue. But not only that, it has an issue to where if you're on Versus, if you're not careful, you'll get insta-killed as soon as you leave the safe room door if the team plays it right. A charger could spawn above and knock you off the cliff. This is another case of this was not designed with Left 4 Dead 2 in mind, because it's Left 4 Dead 1. And then you have to go down this long pathway, and you have to go up the train, go over, and then there is a point of no return, which is, again, if you jump down and if someone gets pulled by a jockey, smoker, charger, there's no saving them. And they have a point of no return for a finale, which honestly, I can't say much. No Mercy has a point of no return because you have to get on the rooftop, but it fits it, I guess. But you have a point of no return, but what it has over No Mercy that makes it annoying is also when you cut through the cornfield, you have the crows. I can't remember if Left 4 Dead 1 made that mandatory, but Left 4 Dead 2 definitely made it mandatory to summon a horde. So you have to deal with a point of no return, a long-ass way to get there, and then you have to deal with the mandatory horde on top of having to deal with the finale. But once you finally get there, it's really cool. I actually like this finale because there's a lot of avenues that you can take too, because you summon the horde, and you have to wait for evac to show up. And then you can either stay in the house. There's a bunch of different rooms you can go into. There's a separate barn house that I love to go to as you stay on the little wooden pillar. You can, wooden beam pillar, whatever you want me to call it. Stay on there, or you could be out in the open, get where the truck is. There's just a lot you can do. It's not a bad finale. Honestly, I would say it's B tier. I would have said C tier because of all the bullshit you have to deal with before you even get to the finale. But it's not a bad set piece for the end of Left 4 Dead 1 in general. But there's a lot you can do for this, and you have the variety of what you can do. You can go to the hay barrels and whatnot, but honestly, it's a pretty mid one. So, but I said it was the end of Left 4 Dead 1, but technically we have the sacrifice because it was a DLC for Left 4 Dead 1, even though it was for both. If you wanted to play on Left 4 Dead 1 for the achievements, you can, but there's just not not as nearly as much as the Left 4 Dead 2 weapons and special infected. But the way the sacrifice starts is, as cool as the entrance is when they're coming in with the train, shooting all the infected, when you're doing a speed run and constantly resetting the chapter and then having to deal with them talking in the train and shooting commons, it's annoying. But that's just my opinion. You start off on the dock, everything's destroyed, they're trying to find a boat, you cut through, you wind around. You do have the new, I think it's exclusive to the sacrifice, it's those fuel tank barrels where if you shoot them, they blow up and then fire bits rain down. I think if they incorporated that more, I think that would have been a really cool thing to just have in other campaigns, but it's only in the sacrifice. But the sacrifice isn't too bad. I do like the fact, honestly, I'm not too about having special infected or tanks and witches being mandatory, but the way they did it was fantastic. So Sita was transporting a tank in a train, and the only way to progress to the level after a point of no return, by the way, you have the tank in the train, you have to open it up, and you have to fight them. Now, the cool thing is about having a mandatory tank is you can prepare more adequately up until that point. And then you open it up, you fight him. He is different looking because I guess he was tortured or something. He has shorts on and he just looks a lot different. He's a lot more darker. And then you go inside of the train where the tank was contained, and you can tell it was a bunch of healthy survivors, and he mutated into a tank. So it's just literally giblets of people that he just absolutely smashed to pieces. It's really cool when you go in there. It's a bloody mess. Really good. But it's funny because even though you've gone through a lot of this map, you get to him, it's only the halfway point. You cut through and there's more of the train yard. You have to go up top. You have to go through the sawmill. Honestly, I would say because the mandatory tank, it would have been an A tier, but B tier. Because it's another one where it's just a little too long for its own good. But the idea of someone being stuck in a train with somebody that's turning into a tank, I wish we would have got more of. I want to see a cutscene of that, of someone just. They're like, oh fuck. But honestly, it's B tier. And you know what? No, I'll put it A tier. It is a memorable thing. What 2 chapters are S tier? Chapter 4 of No Mercy and Chapter 1 of Dead Air. Those are S tier in my opinion. Now, second chapter of Sacrifice. Sorry, I should have brought a water. I'm getting kind of parched from talking all this much. But, let's see. I'm trying to think, where does Sacrifice end? It ends there. Okay, so you open up, and then there's that big open area. You cut around, so there's a charger insta-kill, and then there's that giant pond. What I really like about it is there's a lot of really, really open areas where you can choose where to go. There's a giant pond with a little building. It's like a water filtration thing. You can go whichever way you want. You go inside the area or the building, and there's the explosive barrels in there. It's a really good showcase of that, but where it really shines, the first half is kind of eh. But the second half, when you finally get to the processing area, I guess, the mill, you go up the hill and it slows you down a lot, and there's crows at the top that you have to deal with the horde because of. I think it really, really shines really, really well because forcing you to slow down and then you have that hill to deal with, it's really stressful, and I like going up that because you don't know what's going to happen, especially in Versus. Charger could come down, annihilate your ass. You go through the boat, and it's just a crescendo. It's always a blitzkrieg going through it. I really enjoy going it. Is this the Crow gravel hill? Yeah, that's the gravel hill you have to go up. It's not a bad chapter, but let's see. Honestly, the first half, it's just a lot of water that slows you down. It's not bad. I put it in the B tier. Does Left 4 Dead 1 have the mandatory horde on the hill? I'm pretty sure it does. Because I think the crows were there for it. I don't think I ever did play Sacrifice on Left 4 Dead 1. I know, sacrilege. But yeah. Now, the Sacrifice finale. This is where the stories for the Left 4 Dead 1 survivors end. Except for the little cameo in the passing. I think the idea of you being able to choose who canonically dies before the passing happened is really interesting. You could choose whoever gets to go down and start the generator. You start them all up, get it ready. Of course, Bill is the one that canonically dies. Sorry I'm yawning so much, but honestly, it's getting to the point. The Sacrifice doesn't have much of a difference between the passing when it comes to finale, except, honestly, I prefer it over the passing finale because I hate gas can finales. And the way they made it just, turn on all 3 at once if you want to, but if you do, it has a really cool element to where if you start all 3 generators, you have a chance of spawning 3 tanks at once. And the more tanks, the better. I think it makes it more chaotic and fun, especially with all the cars laying around. And then you get up top and you have the choice of who's going to go down there and sacrifice themselves. This is a really, really good finale, and honestly, I'm probably going to put the passing finale in the A tier despite it being a gas can, but the fact it was its own, you can choose who goes down, and it's not a rescue. It's a really, really different finale, and it has its own thing. Honestly, this is going to be an S tier finale. It's really good, and it one-ups everything. And yeah, I think it's one of my favorite finales in general, because you don't have to go all over the map. You can just start all the generators once. You have the options. So yeah. So let's get into Left 4 Dead 2. Now, Dead Center. This was the showcase for melee weapons. Melee weapons were a big inclusion when Left 4 Dead 2 came out, because honestly, they were needed. If you played Left 4 Dead 1 and you had the pistols and guns, we had the infinite shove and stuff, but with the amount of infected that got in your face, melees were necessity. And so how they decided to showcase that is, in the very beginning of Left 4 Dead 2, you were only either given pistols, a magnum, or a melee weapon. So it's a really good way, because it's just a hallway. It's kind of like No Mercy's beginning. So you start off in just condensed hallways, and you're given a better chance of fighting the infected with these melees. But also, it gives you the option, because boomers are going to be popping up. You need somebody with pistols. So even in versus, there's only melees and pistols. So I think it did really well for how condensed everything was. And then you go on the balconies. Honestly, it's probably my favorite first chapter in all of versus, because it's just so much fun as a survivor and as an infected, with how many options you have of insta-kills. Because every time you have to go outside or there's a window, you have a smoker trying to set someone up or pull them off the edge, especially when you have to go out in the balconies the first time. Jockeys knocking people over, chargers. It's so chaotic, and I think it's just the most adrenaline-fueled. But honestly, it also feels the most imbalanced, because you always get the stupidest motherfucker as the charger. But then when you're going against the other team, their charger has already set up the insta-kill, and you get fucked over. So that's just my bias. But the first chapter of Dead Center is, honestly, they designed it well. You go down. The only stipulation I have against it is when you're playing versus and you get to the elevator, but you don't turn it on yet, and a tank spawns downstairs. It is so infuriating when you're that tank and you're stuck downstairs, and they're like, "Oh, we're not going to go down there." I'm guilty of that too. But we're not going to go down there, so the tank dies, but then you get in the elevator, and their tank spawns, and you have to fight it. That's my only gripe with Dead Center's beginning. But besides that, you go downstairs, and then you also have the showcase of fire. Everything's on fire. You have to avoid the fires. You can knock commons into the fire. You can go around, and there's the first time, unlike No Mercy, where the first half is just in condensed, cramped hall spaces, Dead Center has the fire areas to where it is technically open, but the commons besides the CEDA agents will not be affected, which is another cool thing. We do have an uncommon infected introduced into the fray. And with everything on fire, the CEDA agent infected are immune to the fire. So we have yet another showcase of what Left 4 Dead 2 is offering. We have variety in not just the special infected, but the common infected. Now, I did say it was a condensed area with firewalls around you. Commons can't touch you if they're on fire, but you have the CEDA agents emerging from the fire ready to punch you. So you do have that, and then you go out, and there is this very mild, very small, short, open area to where you could get attacked from any angle. But it's very short. It's just one room, unlike No Mercy, to where it's like, oh, here's a giant open area. Here's a car alarm. Here's a place where you can get lost. It's honestly a way better showcase of what the game offers than what No Mercy was to Left 4 Dead 1 in its first chapter. So we're putting it in the S tier because of how much I had to explain of how much it offers. It is really good. I'm not putting it in the B+. It is so good. And so, second chapter of Dead Center. You go out in the streets, you go down. Man, a lot of Dead Center is so much fun. I love going it because you go out in the open, and in versus mode, You have the option of either being behind the fence where that the CETA truck is. You could be on the roof. You could be a hunter and hop all the way to the top of the hotel. You could be. There's so many different avenues. You could. I'm sorry. I'm getting kind of excited because Left 4 Dead 2 maps, when it comes to versus, I start getting excited. I start getting autistic about it. But there's just so many. You could tell these maps were made with versus in mind. Left 4 Dead 1 maps feel like versus was in mind about 60-70% of the way through the production process. But there's just so much you can do of where you can go. There's different areas where only infected can access. The survivors have to cut through. There's that giant park area. You can go up. You go all the way across. You go to the gun shop. The gun shop. Holy shit. The fact that there is a gun store that showcases every single weapon in the game besides the grenade launcher and chainsaw, the laser sights, there's med kits there. And then you're like, oh, we're going to go get cola from a store. So there's a crescendo event that this is not going to end until this guy gets his soda. So you have to bring that soda. One person has to be holding it while everyone else, who is already souped up with laser sight weapons of their choice, you take it there, you blow it up, and you go to the mall. It's really, really, really good. My vocabulary there is not the greatest, but there's just so much you can do. There's I'm putting in the A tier. It's not perfect, but the way they put it. This is the first time we're out in an open area, and there's just so much you can do. Go to the gun store, all that. So they did really good. And then you get to the mall. Just reading the chat right now. Let's see. So when you get to the mall, so we had to have a mall because what zombie franchise wouldn't be complete without having a mall section? We had it with Dawn of the Dead, and in the Romero universe, we had it with Dead Rising. So it was only natural to go to a mall. Now, you start off in, honestly, I feel like there should have been, I know the mall was under construction, but honestly, I feel like there should have been more debris. Like when you start off in that clothing store, there's just nothing around. It's just empty shelves. Like, I know the pandemic was going on, but I feel like there should have been... It just feels a little too empty in that first area. There's no jewelry in the cases. There's just nothing scattered around. It feels really empty. That's just the aesthetic of it. I always felt like there could have been more. Like, again, I know it's under construction, but you'd think they would have been stocking more. But you go out in the open, and it's... There's a lot of repetitiveness to going up and down the escalators, but it's fun to go down them. And honestly, it's not the worst. I like it a lot. But honestly, it feels really sterile. Like, we just had the hotel where you're condensed. You go out in the open, you go to the gun shop, and then you just go to a child's clothing store where there finally is clothes in this store only. And the names of the restaurants everywhere, there's one called Walk This Way. I think that's really creative. They did really good. And I get reminded of how old I am every time I play that level because it says opening in fall of 2009. I do not need to be reading that every time. Maybe we can get an update where it says something later, please. I don't need to be reminded of my age and how I'm in my 30s. But then you smash open the window after the children's clothing store, and then it's crescendo event and you have to turn off the alarm upstairs. Now, the cool thing I will say about this campaign is one thing Valve prided themselves on about the campaigns. It's not that way in Versus, but there is versatility to where you go. So when you play this chapter in campaign, some doorways are going to be blocked. So instead of going through the clothing store, you might have to go all the way down, go to the bottom floor, and then climb all the way up. It's never the same because they advertised that the experiences were never the same besides the director spawning infected. The director also can change the path that you take in this. So I think that's really interesting. But it's funny when you're playing Versus is you go up the escalator, get smoked off and whatnot. It is a clusterfuck trying to turn off that alarm. But after after the alarm, honestly, I think the safe room should have been right there. Because the portion right after that where you go down the tunnels and then there's the one at Giant Atrium, it's so forgettable. So honestly, I would put this in the B tier. So we went S, A, B. So, what do you guys think Dead Center is going to end up on? The idea of them all being overrun by zombies scares me. Yeah, I can see that. Hard choice. I'd rather say Dead Center. No, I was 26 4 years ago. I'm actually going to turn 31 here in 2 months. A month and a half. Now, it's as we've discussed, I hate gas can finales. I don't like scavenge mode. Yeah, I don't like scavenge mode. Now, Jimmy Gibbs, I like the idea of getting a race car, driving off, and for what it's worth, I think this is the best gas can finale. I think this was best utilized. If you're ever going to do scavenge, this is probably the best finale to do. But it kind of deflates the momentum. But again, a lot of what Dead Center is about is showcasing all the new stuff. So I understand why they made it a gas can finale, because they're like, okay, what was it? No Mercy. Crash Course kind of had a different finale, which I should have criticized that differently, but it takes too fucking long to get to Crash Course finale. But Death Toll, Dead Air, Blood Harvest, they all had cookie cutter. You just have to wait, fight 2 tanks, and get in the rescue vehicle. That was it. They finally got Dead Center's like, hey, maybe we'll do gas cans. And the way you have to get the gas cans is there's some on the first floor, right in front of the elevator. There's some on the second floor. But then there's some on the third floor that you have to maneuver kind of awkwardly around. And you do have options of, if you're on the third floor, you could have 2 people on the bottom floor, 2 people up there, and you can throw them down. On Versus, you got to be really careful because spitters can hit those gas cans. So you have to really maneuver and make sure, if you're doing those teams of 2, that both of you don't get pinned. It makes it for a more nail-biting experience. I think they did this finale. As much as I hate gas can finales, I do enjoy this one. Infected get to have fun with it. Survivors get to have fun with it. If you hurry up and get a lot of the gas cans done, you don't even have to deal with the tank if you're fast enough. So I do like that fact. It is all up to you and your abilities as a player. I'll put it in the A tier. And that's me saying a gas can finale. But thinking about it, I enjoy this one a lot. Now, we're going into the passing because that is the chapter. No, that is the campaign that follows it canonically. Now, I remember when this campaign was announced that we were going to meet, the Left 4 Dead 2 survivors would meet the Left 4 Dead 1. I'm sitting here, I was in high school. I was a senior in high school. And I remember I was in an architecture class. And instead of writing up architectural plans for floor plans, I was on the Left 4 Dead wiki day in and day out of that class, looking up statistics on the passing, looking up the chapters, all the trivia and stuff. So I was hyped up for this. Now, how did it fare? Now, the passing starts off pretty cool. You have the Left 4 Dead 2 survivors talking to Lewis. Lewis was incapacitated. Francis and Zoe. The interactions there were hilarious. Francis and Zoe interacting with Ellis and Nick. Those 2 specifically were fantastic. Yeah. But going through it, honestly, it's pretty cool. You go through the little area, go into the buildings, go out. They do have the new feature, which is only in the passing, kind of like the sacrifice with its explosive barrels. Is the, what are those called? The chests where it's just infinite grenades. I think that's really fun. That's not in the Versus section of it. Honestly, I don't even know why I have this headset on because I don't have any audio. Oh, that's so much better. But I gotta think again. But the infinite grenades that you could just spam and you could sit there and just you hear a horde, you could just throw pipe bombs. I think that's really fun. You have the uncommon infected known as the Fallen Survivor, which has tons of health, but it can be one-shot by a melee. And if you kill them, you get rewarded with pills, a health pack, grenades. I think that's the best uncommon infected they ever did. I like being rewarded for hunting that thing down. It's funny because you'll be playing with friends and be like, oh, there's a Fallen Survivor, kill him, kill him, kill him, kill him, and everyone just dog piles on it because they're like, oh, we gotta have that. It's really rewarding. But when you get to there's like a three layer area where you have to kind of wind your way up, kind of like the San Francisco Road thing. You go up and there's 2 car alarms. I really actually like that, even though it's annoying to deal with. It makes it to where Versus is more volatile. Where as a survivor, you can elect to shoot both car alarms ahead of time to just get them out of the way, or you can try to avoid them. Then you have to go up the stairs and go through the building and cut through the top. There's a lot of options to where stuff can go wrong on this map, because once you get to the top floor, there's that guardrail that is knocked over that you can charge somebody off, jockey somebody off, and then you have to restart the whole process of going through it again. But the set piece for this chapter is the wedding. I think that was the most unique thing they could have done. Is you get to the wedding and there's just chairs lined up, and at the very end is a weeping witch, but she's dressed as a bride. She's adorned in the bride's affair. And a lot of the commons around here are also dressed in tuxes and looking nice. And then you have the music playing, and the fun parts of it is you can piss the witch off. There's the achievement called Wedding Crashers, where if you charge somebody the chairs and all that, but it feels like you have to take out the wedding witch. But there is a radio nearby, and it's playing the dun-dun-dun-dun, 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 but it's all kind of like creepy and stuff. But if you turn it to play the Midnight Riders, it mandatorily pisses the witch off that you turned off her wedding. And it gives kind of storytelling, like maybe the infected, there's still part of her conscious. They're like, no, it was supposed to be my day, my day. And so the fact that you could piss her off with the Midnight Rider song is so good. And they made it to where a horde will always spawn if you do that too. So it's kind of like you ruined the wedding, here comes the whole proceeding, the reception. And then after that, you get to the end. But honestly, the passing, we were starting it with it going to be in a crossover, and you start off with some of the dialogue, and it goes into a wedding, the car alarms, everything. It's an A tier chapter. Yeah, that's what I just said, Murmur. A horde does attack if you do startle the witch. Then you know where the wedding cake is, yeah. Now, chapter 2 of the passing. It's excruciatingly long. I feel like there was some leftover development from Crash Course. Because you start off, you can go to the tattoo area and there's some fun dialogue. You go up the stairs and there's the street. You can go in the bar room where there's tier 2 weapons. You go through and then there's the technical point of no return. If you get pulled in the bar, you have to go all the way around. Then you go down, you go up the building, and there's the suitcase full of pistols and This chapter has a lot of dialogue for the survivors where you can tell the Left 4 Dead 2 development team just had a lot of fun writing for them. And that was another thing Back 4 Blood had an issue with. There was just a lot of natural dialogue here where they just reference songs that they enjoyed, talking about the Under the River tour. There's a lot going on. But god damn is it long. Because you get to the building, you go through, you go up the top, you go across that beam, and hopefully you don't get that little bridge on Versus is so annoying. You get one smoker, a jockey, or a charger, and you have to go all the way around. And by the time you get up there, someone has already respawned. It's just going to happen over and over and over again. Then you have the 3-story thing where people are going to fall out the window expecting... and then you go out in the street, a tank probably spawned there. And then you have to go in the sewers. But to get there, you have to go inside, go down a flight of things, go around a winding thing, go down a staircase, go down. It's a point of no return. You have to drop down in the sewer, climb up. You have to go wade through a bunch of water, climb the ladder. You can go through 2 different tunnels, and then you have to start a crescendo. But not only a crescendo in shit water. It's not only does it stink to get through, but it stinks in general. And then as you're going through, you're in this giant tunnel that goes on for too long. You're in the water, you're slowed down. The commons are coming at you non-fucking stop. It feels like this part, the sewer part, which another sewer part, of course it's another sewer. It should have been like a chapter 3. This should have been a 4-chapter campaign. But man, this chapter, it goes on for way too long. If the first half was its own entity where the safe room was right after the 3-story building, maybe. But that second half just drags it for me. I'm putting it C tier. But yeah, that ending, I hate it. Now, the passing finale. This is another gas can finale. You know my stance on gas can finales. And the fact that they made the next canonical chapter right after Dead Center of fueling up a car, you got to do it all over again. Yay. But anyways, in Versus, I'm not a big fan of doing this one because it's so, with Dead Center, it's a 3-story thing where if you have snipers, if someone gets pinned, you can save them. But when there's always one person, because there's gas cans all over that are so far spread apart around corners and stuff. There's always one motherfucker, including me, that I do this sometimes, that tries to get the one gas can that's all the way around the corner, and they get pinned, and now everyone's like, okay, we got to run over there. You try to help them, and then you get hunted, and it's just chaos. This was not made with Versus in mind, to be honest. This was made for fan service, because in campaign, it's great. You have Zoe, Lewis, and Francis shooting from above, throwing down supplies. They have laser sights, so as long as you stay near where they are, they can gun down anything. I like the fact that you have this condensed area where 3 other survivors are backing you up, and then if you get too far, they can't save you, but you have to get gas cans. This was made with campaign in mind, not Versus. So, honestly, as a campaign chapter, I would give it an A level. But as a Versus one, I would give it a D. So if we add A and D together, I would think it... what do you guys think? I'll let you guys decide. Is it B or C? Yeah, the reason the NPC survivors, the Left 4 Dead 1 survivors, aren't in Versus is because it would be broken. Can you imagine if you played Versus mode and Zoe, the NPCs with their auto aimer up there with their laser sights, especially with Lewis on a mounted gun? The people playing a survivor would just camp out the area and just let those survivors gun down anything. If you were a tank, you wouldn't be able to do shit. I'm seeing a lot of C's and B's. We got 3 C's and 3 B's. Alright, you know what? I'll put it in B just because of the fan service at the end there. So, B tier. We got a lot of B tiers here. It's funny, Crash Course is the only one that has any D tier right now. Now we go to probably the most popular campaign in Left 4 Dead history. I don't know anybody that's like, I hate Dark Carnival. Everyone loves Dark Carnival. The only reason people don't like Dark Carnival is because they played it so many damn times, because that's all people want to play is Dark Carnival. The set design for it is fantastic. The Uncommon Infected of the Clown is very unique in his squeaky shoes summoning Common Infected. And then if you melee him in the face, his nose goes off. So Dark Carnival is probably the best. It's everyone's favorite campaign. Even if they say they don't like it. Because you're just sick of it. But the first chapter, you're going through the highway. You're going over all these cars. I think it's a perfect representation of post-apocalypse for a zombie-type setting. And then you go through and you have to cut through the hotel. You have 2 different options. You can take the street. You can hop over the truck, which you can't do on PC anymore. But on Xbox you can. But you can go to the hotel. You can cut through, go through the swimming pool. There's car alarms. There's 2 different car alarm spots that I really like that fact on Versus. Because you don't know, is this one car alarm to this one car alarm? So it gives more versatility to the Versus area. And then, with there not being too many guardrails on the second floor, you do have ample opportunity to pull people off with a smoker or jockey. You have to cut through around to go through. The hotel is really well designed of how to get through it. You can get supplies or you can avoid it. And then the hill behind the hotel, the fact that you can pull somebody and it could just be chaos because this is probably one of the biggest point of no returns in Left 4 Dead history. You go down this hill and you have to land on certain spots. You got to be careful. Then you have to cut through some water. The water's not too bad. You go back uphill and you're at the carnival. Honestly, it's a really, really good first chapter. I wouldn't say it's S tier. It does feel a bit long, but the way they pace it out is actually really, really well done. I would consider it A tier. A tier, really well done for a first chapter. Now, the second part, when you first arrive at Whispering Oaks, I think the whole idea of going to a carnival, a theme park in a zombie apocalypse is great. I think this is where they were supposed to have the crossover event with Zombieland, because Zombieland ended at a carnival. But I think there was rumors of that supposed to happen, but it fell through. So this is what was left over, and we got the best campaign. And just thinking about it, you cut through, you could get the Noam Chomsky, which is really fun. There's a lot of fun stuff you could do. There's whack-a-mole, there's a shooting gallery. Whack-a-mole's not until chapter 4, but still, there's just so much you could do here. There's the strongman thing. They put a lot of like fun little Easter egg stuff you could do there. And you just cut through, and then you go on the giant open carnival area. You go down slides, you go through maintenance areas, and then the carousel part with the crescendo. I think it's one of the best crescendos because it's not too long, and you can just wind around. You can elect to turn it off if you want, and you can pull the lever, turn it off. Or if you don't want to, you have the option to just keep going. If you're running ahead of your team, be like, hey, I'll turn this off for you guys. I like that you have that option to make it a nonstop crescendo or not. I think it's A tier. I think they did really well with it, and it's fun to go through each time. It's one of my favorite levels to go through in Versus. Now, another thing is we go back to a tunnel-like area. Now, the Tunnel of Love, honestly, I really wish the Tunnel of Love part of it wasn't so damn long. It takes up the first half of this chapter. The roller coaster, I like the roller coaster part a lot. But just going through the Tunnel of Love, I'm just not a big fan of. I don't like it when it's just this claustrophobic experience. I like it when it's wide open and you can't tell where the commons are going to come from. Here it's just like, oh, they're in front of me or behind me. And then sometimes there's a side room. It's just like, It makes Versus really irritating because trying to spawn behind those little, like, there's like a diagonal shape where you can spawn behind, but honestly, there's not much to it, and it gets repetitive going through the tunnel systems. Now, there is the point of no return, that hole in the maintenance room. I think that is really good. That breaks up the pace of how slow the Tunnel of Love is, and that hole has claimed a lot of people's sanity. It's funny, when you're trying to go down it in Versus, and you're just not going down and you get pulled. I think it's great, and I like the fact that if you're a tank, you can make a second hole to go through. The tank can, you can make whatever you want out of that suggestion. Love this chapter, but honestly, it's low B for me, if not high C. Yeah, I can agree with that, Max. I don't know why I don't have you as a moderator. There we go. But yeah, I would have to agree. The second half is great, though. That roller coaster, it's one of those crescendos I always bring up where it's every man for itself. That roller coaster, most of the time people aren't going to save each other because there's a charger waiting up top, or somebody will get hit and you're like, I can't do this, because the coaster is so long and there's so many winding point of no returns that you have no choice but to leave somebody behind. And then you can turn off the crescendo event and get inside, but honestly, I would say I have to agree with Max. It's either B or C. Honestly, because of the roller coaster, I'll say B. The Tunnel of Love, I hate going through, though. I do not like the Tunnel of Love. It goes on for way too long. I wish there was more of the carnival. Because when you go to the carnival, you don't spend all that time on one ride. And Tunnel of Love should have been like 1/3. It should have been like Tunnel of Love and maybe like... Because there was the Dark Carnival Remix chapter. So it should have been something like the Tunnel of Love, the Ferris wheel, and then the roller coaster. So something like that. I think that would have been better utilized. But then we get to the barns. And living in the American South, I've been to many... I go to the state fair. I used to go to the state fair every year. And this whole barn thing, like half of the carnival just being barns. Yeah, that's how it is in the American South. And I live in Waco now, and it's the same thing here, where half of it just takes up barns. But you go out, you are in the, it's the lines for the bumper cars. Or not the bumper cars, it was the lines for the roller coaster. You go outside, and it's another example of, if you're playing in campaign, a fence can be put up to where you have to take a left or the right avenue. Versus, there's not that. But I do like that you can be forced to take one direction or not. But you go in, and then there's the giant open area. I know TK is going to complain about this, but there's the open area where there's the strongman competition, and then there's the bumper cars. And then usually, for some reason, tanks like to spawn here. In that giant open area, the tank will always hit that. And then I hate the fact that the bumper cars are restricted. You have to get really lucky to get a bumper car out of its confinement. I wish the guardrails were destructible or something, because I think if there was a bunch of bumper cars that could be punched around even more and more out in the open, I think the chaos of that would make it so much better. But once you get past the bumper cars, a helicopter whizzes by, which is a really cool set piece. I do like that. But then you have to go across. There is the whack-a-mole. I like that. Then you go through the barns. You can get some new weapons. Go over the rooftops, which those rooftops, man, Jesus Christ. The fact that the smokers and chargers can F you up immensely. And then there's a point of no return. Then you go down. And probably the worst crescendo event in Left 4 Dead is that damn barn rush at the end where you have to turn on the alarm to open up the gates. And for some reason, those long hallways, there's one, and then there's a little kneecap there, and then it branches off. For some reason, the common infected spawns there are so relentless. It's just... it's awful. I would say D tier, but the first half of it I enjoy a lot. So I'm going to put it in C tier. It's not the worst, but my God, that ending is awful. It like, especially in versus, it's usually you could be having a perfect run, and then just the amount of commons, unless you have a boomer bile or pipe bomb or 2 pipe bombs, good luck. Now we get to probably my favorite finale, just because, if you couldn't tell, because I'm the rocker dude. Hell, I can even look like Dusty from Midnight Riders right here. There we go. I love the rock aesthetic. And when they said that there was going to be a rock concert for the end, it's, oh my God, dude. The fact that they change the music to where you're just listening to music for the finale. When the tank shows up, it's just the Midnight Riders song called Midnight Tank. You fight, there's fireworks you can set off. There's a unique item only in this finale, the firework boxes, where you can set it up if you want to ahead of time. You could put them all over the stage, all over the bleachers and stands, and you could shoot them, and it acts pretty much just like a gas can, but it does more friendly fire damage. But the fact that it just does the little sparkle effect, that's so freaking cool. There's 4 guitars on stage, which, why is there 4 guitars on stage? Don't you have a drummer? I don't understand that. I always think about that. There is 4 guitars, not a bass, not any kind of other thing, not a singer. It's just 4 guitars. So I guess he's playing the guitar and he's doing the drums. I don't know what's going on with that, but that's funny as hell to me. But Dark Carnival is a perfect finale to me. They did it, the aesthetic of it, just the vibe of it. It is so much fun. It's Left 4 Dead 1 was all about capturing the horror vibe. And then Left 4 Dead 2 is all about, we're going to make it fun. There's still going to be horror, but man, this finale just captured what Left 4 Dead 2 is all about. Just a fun experience and just going, yo, this is sick. It was just so different, and you just playing a rock concert. The only thing I have an issue with is there's not much variety in where you can post up. In a lot of other Left 4 Dead, because this is the generic version of the finale. If you stripped it down to its bone, it's you fight 2 tanks and then wait for the rescue vehicle. Now with stuff like Death Toll, Blood Harvest, Dead Air, even No Mercy, you had options of places to go. But the thing is the Dark Carnival Midnight Riders concert, it's really restrictive. And do not tell me you don't go to the same exact place every time if you're playing on Versus. Think about it. There's that little corner right where you enter the area. That's where everyone always posts up. And it's so annoying to deal with on Versus. I do enjoy this finale. The vibe is great. But when you play it, it's the most repetitive finale if you're playing on versus. That's why in PC they eventually added those tents to where you could spawn better, because when Left 4 Dead 1 was introduced, they made it to where you had to spawn further back from survivors in their proximity on finales only. So if you notice when you're playing Left 4 Dead versus, you could spawn close to somebody relatively closely. But in Left 4 Dead 2, when the Left 4 Dead 1 update came out with Coldstream, they made it to where you had to spawn like twice as far away. And so for Dark Carnival, you did not have much option. If someone was in that corner, there was only 2 spots you could spawn. You could spawn and come out that little hole. By the time you already spawned, you're making a bunch of noises and we're going, and they're like, oh. So Dark Carnival as a finale, fundamentally and functionally, was not the best. If you're trying to play it on versus, it's just a repetitive grind. But I like what they did with PC. They got rid of the grenade launcher. I love the fact that there was a mandatory grenade launcher there on Xbox. They got rid of it on PC with the Last Stand update. But yeah, there's not much variety to the concert. So as much as I want to put it in S tier, you have to think of everything entailing it. So you're probably going to hate me for this, but I'm going to put it in A tier. It's not perfect. I love it to death. I think it's one of the best. But if you're playing versus, how many times have people actually gone somewhere else besides that fucking corner? People go to the exact same spots every time. I'm sorry, but you're talking to the guy that plays versus a lot. But yeah, it's stylish as hell. I love the vibe of it. But out of all the finales in Left 4 Dead 2, it has the least variety on how you combat it. You go to the same spots. You either stay on the stage if you're feeling funky, or you go to one of the corners. And if you're infected, you pretty much have to wait for a tank to spawn before you can do anything. We ran around and won. Yeah, but it's goofing around with friends and stuff. But if you're playing against somebody that's really sweaty and they're in that corner, you have to wait for the tank to spawn. And even then, they have 4 Molotovs. And what's the best option for a tank? Go to the forklift. Oh no, they throw a Molotov at the forklift ahead of time. Now you're stressed on time because remember, anything the tank punches despawns if it doesn't get hit after 30 seconds. And then the tank can go on the roof and throw rocks, but then you have that giant awning above to where if you throw a rock, it could probably get broken, so you don't have that option, and people could just be sniping you. It's not a good infected map. It's not. It sucks to play as an infected. I will say that. There's not many places to spawn that are easy to get at the survivors. That A rating was a big upset. I'm going to say that hands down. It's not a perfect finale. I love it to death. Look at me. I look like a damn hippie. You think I'd love it? But as a versus, it's probably the worst versus finale in Left 4 Dead 2. I love it to death, but no. And that's coming from the guy that obsesses over the grenade launcher. And that's the only mandatory grenade launcher spawn in the game. Unless you're on PC where they phase that out. Bastards. Put it back in. Put that shit back in. A rating. Yeah, here we go. Okay. Anyways, that was my rant on Dark Carnival because everyone was like, oh, easy S tier. S tier, baby. Let's go. Baby, that's what it's all about. Woo! But anyways, we're going to Swamp Fever. Now, that's a big point of contention. Dark Carnival is considered the best campaign. And then Swamp Fever, with that campaign, when I talk to people, they either love it or they hate it. There is no, it's all right. I don't know. It's weird. Swamp Fever has this weird thing for people. I would talk to people, and some people would be like, "Oh, Swamp Fever, what the hell's wrong with you?" But honestly, dude, I like the whole campaign. At first, I hated it, but something about it just has a really good vibe to it. I wouldn't say it's the worst, but next time you're playing with somebody, ask someone what their opinion on Swamp Fever is. You're going to get an extreme yes or no. But I think it's solid. So the first chapter, you start off in the train because the Dark Carnival helicopter crashed because he's infected, just like the Crash Course helicopter. Yeah. And then you land and you go across the street. You go in the building, go through the, there's like a lot of shack houses. You can check those. And then you get to the river and you have the options to start it. And then you could go on a building, one of this building. Honestly, it's a really fun chapter for verses. I bring up verses a lot because, hell, that's half the game. But that river being there, there's a horde. You could be insta-killed there. There's a lot of versatility on what the hell can happen with this because the first half, most of the time, someone is going to die. And that second half the team is like, oh, I'm not going to experience that because I'm in the water. I'm drowning. Oh. But let me tie my hair back up now. But the first half is always so much fun for me. The second half, it's alright. I wish there wasn't that river there for the insta-kills because I wish more people could experience it. There we go. I think that's better. But yeah, it's got a lot of glitches. I do like the fact that when you get to the second half, there's the boardwalks you can go on top of to get more supplies. Honestly, the second half feels like it goes on a little too long for what it's worth, but it's not the worst. I would say it's a B tier. It's a really, really solid beginning to a campaign. Now, let's see. This is the one where there's a crashed airplane. There's a lot of swamp. Who would have thought of that in a Swamp Fever? I like very little of Swamp Fever other than the finale. That's understandable. But you start off... Honestly, I don't like the beginning of this one. You start off and there's all that water there. You can take the right side and avoid all of it. Hop over. There's the log. There's the grenade launcher. Another reason I like Swamp Fever a lot, there's a lot of grenade launcher spawns. So, yeah. That's another reason I like picking it is because my bias for grenade launchers. I just like blowing shit up. I don't like blowing my team up. I mean, saving my team from hordes of infected. But going up the boat, I do like the set piece of the parachute guy above where you can take supplies from him. Another cool thing they did with the Last Stand update is there is actually an uncommon infected known as the parachute zombie where they updated it to where the guy that was hanging there is actually a zombie now and you can kill him and stuff. But you go to the crashed airplane and you have to open up the door. I like that set piece. There used to be a way to shortcut around it, but they patched that a long time ago. This chapter makes way more sense in single player. Yeah, so the difference in campaign and versus is there is, I think it's like a 60% slowdown in water when you're in campaign, but in versus, I think it's only down to 20%, 25%. So the water is, it changes up a lot, but you also have the fucking mudmen slinging shit in your face that you can't see in the water, and they look like jockeys half the time. I like the mudman, but I hate trying to shoot them because I'm used to aiming for the head, but they're sitting here like doing this. And I'm usually end up missing them completely. But you get past the airplane, and there's another example of every man for himself. There's a couple crescendos that are always like this. There's the Dark Carnival roller coaster, Chapter 4 of Dark Carnival, and then the airplane of Chapter 2 of Swamp Fever. Every time, without fail, when that happens, there's always groups of 1, 2, or 3 that are like, fuck it, let's book it. One person gets left behind, but then you have the cabin there. I do like that there is a cabin during this crescendo because usually with the fuck it, let's leave everyone behind, there is those supplies there. There's like 4 health packs, 2, 3 health packs. I can't remember the exact amount. But you could stop there for a grenade launcher, more supplies. So there is incentives to slow down, but you could just keep going. There's a big old swamp area and you get to a house. I'd say it's not it's not Crash Course. I'll say that much. You know what? Let's just do this. We're just going to make that the Crash Course tier, okay? Because I don't think anything's going in the D tier. I'll say it's C. The airplane part is what sells it for me, and the fact that grenade launchers spawn so frequently there is what keeps it out of Crash Course Tier. How about that? Now, the Shanty Town. You know what? You know what? No, I'm putting this B and then Shantytown C. I do not like playing through Shantytown. Shantytown is such an annoyance. It's probably one of my least favorite to play through. The first 2 chapters are fun for me, but when we get to Shantytown, I don't like it. For some reason, it's just there's nothing to it. And then the crescendo event for it is the little, you go across the bridge that slowly descends, and it's just chaos. You could take a shortcut, which is kind of bullshit. I don't like it. And it feels like it's... I can't say much about it because a lot of it's forgettable. It's just giant open areas with not much going on. There's the little hut that you can get supplies in, but there's just nothing to it. Yeah, there's not much else I could say about it. I'm just boring. Boring and irritating. Now, the saving grace of Swamp Fever. I've seen a lot of people in the chat bring it up. The finale. The finale is great. Suddenly, we go from everything being this fog-stricken, murky, dark, just dirty feeling area. Then you get to the good old plantation. And everything's bright and sunshine suddenly. I wonder why that is in the South. But anyway, it's kind of a long stretch to get to the finale because you start off in that big open field. You cut through a few houses, which is fun to go through the houses. There's the 2-story house. Then you go through another long street. Then you go through the backyard. You go up. You have to cut through the mansion, get supplies. And then it's a long way to get there. It's kind of funny how much you have to go through just to get it started. But then Swamp Fever's plantation house is really fun to do a finale in. There is a lot you can do. There is a room full of adrenaline you can go to. There's the staircase you can hold up in. You can hold up in the center area. You can go in the hedge mazes, sit on top of the hedges, or you can go outside and go to the left where you could go on that back corner wall where commons can really not get to you on a surprise. And another fun fact with the Swamp Fever is the first tank goes by, you kill it, and then usually the second tank that spawns, it spawns 2 tanks. I do like the fact that it changes things up a little bit. Just the fact that you add one more boss infected to the mix suddenly makes it more interesting. And it actually makes it to where Molotovs are useful the first time in the campaign because there's no water anywhere. But one of my favorite moments ever on the channel of me doing YouTube was the finale of Swamp Fever, where there is a bug that still persists to this day, to where if you start up the Horde, it can bug and it can just skip the entire finale. I don't know why that bug has persisted for so long. I don't know how it was bugged. But the fact that that can happen, and if you're playing with friends and you can just skip it, it's funny as hell. We had the Restin' Dicks with Mirdis. That was probably one of the funniest things I've ever had happen. Now, when you're playing a regular versus and you're being competitive, that is bullshit. So, yeah, I can say that. But honestly, Plantation, with how everything Swamp Fever was, it's an S-tier finale. I think it's one of the best finales they've ever done. So I'm saying the Swamp Fever finale is better than the Dark Carnival finale. That's my hot take for the day. I bet you weren't expecting me to say that. But honestly, I think it's a really, really good finale. They did really good with it. They took the Left 4 Dead 1 formula of a finale of just 2 tanks and whatnot. And you have all these options of being in the building, being outside the building. And then when the rescue vehicle actually comes with Virgil, it's not just, oh, we can hide out in a spot and then we can just barely run that way. Dead air, there's the airplane there, so you could, we killed the second tank, so everyone camp right here. Oh, we made it. Death toll. We'll just sit right at the docks and the boat will show up. No, with Swamp Fever, when that shit is done, you still have a bit of a trial to go through because the gate gets blown open by Virgil and you have to make it through that gauntlet. It's like a mini gauntlet. You have to run through the dock. You have to go through some water for the last time. I just brought up how there's no water. You got to run through water just one more time. Just be reminded that you were going through a swamp one more time. And there's a tank spawning again, so you got to be really careful. Make sure no one's getting slowed down. So it doesn't make it to where you can camp. It makes it more stressful, more interesting. So honestly, it's the perfection of the original Left 4 Dead finale formula. They did perfectly. Good job. Now, we're moving on to Hard Rain. Now, Hard Rain is what I like to call Back 4 Blood's game design formula, where you take a level and then you go back through it. Except Back 4 Blood did that like 6 times. Left 4 Dead did this once. And when they did it, they actually added some variety instead of being like, oh, we'll just make one street you go down. Or, oh, you fight a new infected here that's mandatory. So the beginning of Hard Rain. I'm going to have to say something. On campaign, it's perfectly fine. So the idea of Hard Rain is you have to be careful with your supplies. Because the supplies you use up for later on. So if you use all the med kits at the burger tank, because I think there's 6. If you use them all up, you won't have those for the finale. You still have the ones that are in the building, but I like the idea that Hard Rain, you have to be very sparing with your supplies. But Versus takes away that continuity of supplies, which is completely fine. But man, the beginning of Hard Rain on Versus, if you don't bum rush the hell into that building and the other team has a charger, if somebody is AFK and someone decides, oh, I'm going to go grab a gun real quick, charger comes down, boom, insta-death. Here comes the votes for the restart. Here comes, oh, I wasn't playing, let's restart the campaign. Oh, here comes the rage. Here comes the rage quit. As much fun as I have charging people off for being charged, there's been so much rage because someone bum rushed in and got charged. It honestly, with a campaign or with a game that was designed with more verses in mind, it is baffling that they had a beginning like this to where you could insta-kill someone at the beginning. I don't know if it's some sick joke, but the fact that you can insta-kill someone at the very start, and if they're just like, oh, I'm going to go take a piss break because this loading screen's taking forever. I have to pee so fucking bad. Well, you got charged. Oh, well, go take a shit now because it's going to be another chapter before you can play. But regardless, that's going to prevent this from going in the S tier, that's for sure. The chapter's fun to go through. You go over a bunch of stuff. There's a car alarm. You go through, go down the streets. It's not a long chapter. I really enjoy it. I would put it in the A tier, but the fact that you have an insta-kill at the get-go. Wait, oh, almost screwed up there. Yeah, we'll put this in the B tier. It would be an A tier if it wasn't for that. The one Charger Rochelle meme video? I cannot remember. Second chapter, the Sugar Mill. Honestly, this is a really, really good chapter. Because we are introduced... Because the Wandering Witch was introduced into Left 4 Dead 2. When it's a daytime map, the witch tends to walk around. And we got a little bit of lore, too. Which there is multiple wandering witches in the mill. I guess they're attracted to the sugar. And it makes the chapter more interesting. You have to be careful of where you're shooting. It gives the infected... but it gives the infected more options of what to do in the map. Because as threatening as Left 4 Dead 1 wanted to make the witch look, once people got used to the witch and crowning her, it felt like the witch was not a threat. Unless you're playing on like expert or realism, where it can insta-kill, the witch is not a threat, especially the Wandering Witch. The fact that she's already standing up, you can one-shot her from any direction. And for some reason, the Wandering Witch takes longer to piss off, too. So you really have to go out of your way to make sure she does anything. So the fact that this chapter introduces multiple in one sitting, that was actually needed because the Wandering Witch is not a threat. You have to go out of your way to make it a threat. So honestly, them adding this made it really well. Then you have to go to the top. You start a horde event with the elevator. That area is a clusterfuck of getting insta-kills and whatnot. You're way up top, so it's really daunting. Then you have to cut through the cane field to get to the gas station. Honestly, it's an A tier. A tier. I think they did really well with that. I think it kind of meanders near the middle because it's just a winding S path that you have to go through. It's really easy to maneuver with the infected. Actually, you know what? Should I? Honestly, when it comes to showcase maps, I'm all about that. I was especially with the Dead Center. Yeah, we'll put it S tier. They did really good. Because honestly, the Witch was so underrepresented. Jesus Christ. Underrepresented. It wasn't represented well, is what I'm trying to get across. And so this map finally gave the Witch some spotlight. So the next chapter is where they showcase that you're going back through the campaign, but now it's just a torrential downpour. It's funny that they filled up the gas cans and suddenly it's just starting to rain. But I like the fact that you have to cut back through. This is a really good campaign to cut back through. I'm actually interested to see what it would be like if other campaigns pulled this. But you have to go through, and then now there's water everywhere in the cane field, so you have to slowly go through. And you can't tell where stuff is in the cane field, but you're having to go slow. So it's really cool. I like that. Then you have to get up the elevator. Insta-kill hell up there. I love the setup for insta-kills there. It's one of the perfect opportunities. You spit in there, cause boom. Someone's going to panic outside charged. It's really fun. But this is one of the only instances where I have to say it's not a crescendo, but when you get on top of that elevator, 9 times out of 10, people are like, okay, every man for himself. I don't know what it is about this chapter, but once you get on top of that elevator and everyone gets out, everyone starts dying or something, it's just a bum rush because it's a really, really fun map to speedrun through because it gives you options to stay out of the water. You go from the pipe, jump on top of the trailer roof, get on the silos, you just stay on top of the silos. It's just way too much fun to run through. And as much as I would be against something that makes people want to ditch each other, it's a fun map. And since it's shorter, actually no, it's the same length as chapter 2. Yeah, that's right. So I'm gonna put the A tier. Yeah, there's a parkour element to it that's not in most Left 4 Dead maps. Because most Left 4 Dead maps, it's just straight through, and then there's kind of like Call of Duty, you can take this way. What you saw in the beginning, going through chapter 2, is there's like so many different levels that you can't access, because you're like, oh, if I'm going to take this area, I would be going backwards. But now, you have options of how to go back through. I really like how they gave more interesting vibe to it, where you could take the original path, but now it's going to be slower, or you could take a higher path where you could run the risk of a jockey or smoker knocking you off and making things more complicated. But the fact that there's more avenues from an area you just went through, really cool. A tier. Now, chapter 4. Chapter 4 is like 65% of chapter 1. They just added a shit ton of water to the neighborhood areas. Honestly, this map, it fucks up verses so much because you can only get 500 points for chapter 1, but for chapter 4 you could get 700 if you get through it, which is insane. You get more points for half of the map, which is it's stupid to me, and they need to nerf it to 500 to 400 points. Because with that said, people usually will just take routes that are not covered in water and speedrun. This is another speedrun map right after chapter 3 when you get up the elevator. But it's fun to go through. And just the amount of water. I'm not a big fan of tons of water being everywhere, but backtracking through this isn't the worst. And usually when tanks spawn on this map, the amount of cars and the slowdown makes it interesting. But with... Ooh, Jesus Christ. I looked at the wrong screen. Give me just a second. There we go. We'll put that B tier. It's a lot of retreading, but Chapter 3 did really good at retreading a map, while Chapter 4 was literally, it's the exact same map, but water. And you go backwards. There's nothing new to it. Chapter 3 gave you more options to get through it. Chapter 4 is just like, water. Now, Chapter 5. If you know me and my speed runs, Hard Rain I had the most difficult time with. Because for the finale, and you're going against an expert tank, you can't use Molotovs unless you stay on the rooftop, but then you have to avoid rocks. The fact there's water everywhere renders one grenade pretty much useless, which really, really sucks. Yeah, why is Hard Rain still so hard to speedrun? I think I spent 4 videos until I just said, fuck it, I got in a spot where I cheesed the game. And people were mad at me for that, which I understand, but I'm not an official speedrunner. I'm not trying to profess myself as some master of Left 4 Dead. I'm just here to have fun. That's all. That's what video games are all about. I'm not submitting my stuff to speedrunning.com. I'm not ComChick. But as for this finale, it's just the beginning of the campaign. Toilet strats. I do remember the toilet strats. There was a porta potty on the right side of the restaurant of the burger tank you can sit in, and I don't know if they fixed it, but it made it to where the tank can't get in. There's a lot of cheese that you can do, but here's another thing with like Dark Carnival. There was a lot of limitations to what you could do, of where you could go, where you could post up. Hard Rain kind of is like that because you don't want to stay in the water and be slowed down. But you can also use the 18-wheeler to jump over, get in the safe room. I like that you can do something like that, the cheese spot, but that requires you knowing about that, of having to parkour above it and get over the fence again. I can't remember if PC fixed that or not. But Hard Rain is very limited, just staying on the rooftop. Which, for what it's worth, it's really cool because it's kind of like it's kind of reminds me of Last Stand when you're on the lighthouse on this building, just gunning down zombies from above. But I'll say it's it's either B or C. What do you guys think? I'm not the biggest fan of this finale, but it's fun for what it's worth. I'll put it in C. It's definitely a C to me. This is much worse than Dark Carnival's finale. Oh yeah, definitely. Because of all the water, you're restricted to just a rooftop. But now we're on the final campaign. Why did Virgil need to leave in the first place? I think he said he's going to go look for more people to help, which Virgil's an OG. Yeah, I remember at the beginning of the parish, he says, I'm going to go look for more people. Y'all take care now. Bonjour. So Virgil's a G. He's just looking. I think his wife died of the infection. So he's just like, you know what? I'm old, I'm frail, I got a boat, and I'll go find more people to help. So Virgil's he's true. He's a true guy. Oh, that's true. He's a talking boat too. He can't really fitting on a helicopter. Is Virgil a carrier? I don't think he was a carrier. I think he was just lucky and stayed on the boat long enough. Because dude has a grenade launcher that blew up a damn fence, so he was obviously well armed. That's true. He would have just stayed at the dock. Okay, so Chapter 1 of the Parish. So, when Left 4 Dead 2 was first announced, they did not use Dead Center in the demo. They brought in the Parish because it's Nolans. And Nolans, in the beginning, was great. But here's the problem with Chapter 1. So Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 were supposed to be one big chapter. But they realized, holy shit, this is long. We need to fix this some way. What's up, fanboy? Chapter 1 is so damn short, but the reason it's short is because it was supposed to be 1 and 2 together. Can you imagine if they didn't change that and it was a 4-chapter campaign? You start from the beginning of chapter 1 all the way to end of chapter 2. You remember where chapter 2 ends? It's after that crescendo event with the Sita quarantine. That would be ridiculous. So I'm glad they split it off, but at the same time, they could have like pushed this chapter a little bit more forward. Maybe like at the end of the park or something. I don't know. Honestly, it's really hard to tell where we could put that safe room to make it more balanced. Yeah, the park entrance, that's where it was originally. That where the safe room is, you could tell they just kind of like haphazardly put that there and just made it to where it goes around the fence. That was not originally where it was. But I digress. It's a really short chapter, but for a demo, it makes sense. It's just a short and sweet experience. There's the car alarm at the end. You can go up and above. There's options you could take. You take the street. You could take the 18-wheeler. You could go up on the ramp and drop down. There is a lot for the short experience. There's the bar. TK brought up the jukebox Easter egg. You can turn it on, and the fact that they introduced all we want to do is eat your brains, and if it gets to the part in the chorus where it goes, all we want to do is eat your brains, it summons a horde, which is hilarious. It's fun when Valve just kind of goofs around with that. But yeah, besides that, I'd put it's when it comes to showcases, it's all right. It's too short. If there was a little bit more, maybe makes versus there just another speed run area. But it is fun to get insta kills at the beginning if you can pull it off. Now chapter 2 is a lot of fun. You start off at the safe room, you go outside, go into there. Now at some point I want to go to New. I was talking to my friend Cade, and they were telling me that they went to New Orleans and went to all the specific spots of where Left 4 Dead 2 takes place. In the part where you're going up the stairs to go to the park, that is an actual area in New Orleans. I really want to go there sometime and, do a comparison video, just seeing how Left 4 Dead faithfully recreated parts of New Orleans. I think that would be a lot of fun. But anyways, you go through the park. The park is so huge. Fanboy with the donations. Good to see you streaming again, Zach. Hope you've been well. Thank you very much, dude. I really appreciate it. It's probably going to pop it up now. There it goes.
Peel's here. It's good to see.
But yeah, they
streaming
faithfully
again,
recreated
Zach.
a
Hope
lot
you've
of
been
New
well.
Orleans set pieces, and I really want to go there sometime because I think that's only like a 7 or 8 hour drive from here, from where I live. So I wouldn't mind that. I think that'd be cool. But you go through the park. The park is honestly really cool. Campaign makes it to where you can go one direction or another. It just changes up. But in Versus, you can go down the middle path for a gun. You can go down the right path, go to the restrooms for a gun, or go down the left path where there is no gun, but it's nice and wide open to where you can see Special Infected coming. So it's only 7 or 8 hours. When you live in Texas, 7 or 8 hours is mandatory, okay? We don't measure shit in miles. We measure shit in hours. But the fact that there's a risk and reward thing to just the park there. You go out in the open, there's not really any supplies that you can... Well, there's the gazebo. I'm sorry. There's the one gun. But usually people take the left path because that's the safest. The right path, everything is good there. But with how long Chapter 2 feels, especially going through the park, there is the extra med kits right before that tunnel. And it doesn't feel too long. Then you have the giant wide open area under the bridge. That's fun to just fuck around in, get some supplies. And then the crescendo event. This was the first time we were introduced to what a crescendo event was. If you don't know what a crescendo event is, even though I've said that word so many times at this point, I had to save it until now, is when you summon a horde, the horde doesn't stop until you specifically stop it by hitting a button or some kind of feature to stop it. But in the end, it's just a gauntlet until you finish it yourself. And so the way they did it was they did a quarantine-like line thing where you have to go wind around, up and down, up and down. And it's really cool because the way they did that with the fencing is if someone is ahead of you and they get hit by something, you could shoot through the fence and help them. And so it allows people to run ahead and doesn't really, it's not too punishing because it's a crescendo to where you have to get there as soon as possible and end it. And they don't really punish you too hard for rushing ahead because you do have the fencing. You could shoot somebody and you can help them out. You get on top. Now, if you're wanting to hit that button on versus, they made it to where there's not many guardrails. So there is more risk and reward. So you could pull somebody off right before they hit the button, make them go all the way back around. It's a really interesting affair. And then when you do hit the button, there is still a bit of time to where you can't go forward because the bus station doors aren't open yet. So you got to wait for that to open. Eventually the crescendo is going to end. But then when those doors open, it's another every man for himself thing half the time. But it's fun because there's usually a witch back there. My only really complaint about the map when it comes to stuff like it's a really, really good versus map. The only thing I hate about it is when you're a tank and you spawn during the crescendo event. If you don't know where that climb ladder is to get above the bus station, you're going to spend most of your time going, how do I climb over? How do I climb over? I forgot. It's such a weird spot to try to climb over that bus station. If you played, you would know what I'm talking about. And the climb ladders are hard to see, especially in a bright area. Because the thing with Left 4 Dead climb ladders for Infected, they were made with Left 4 Dead 1 darkness in mind. Now, what do I mean by that? The climb ladders are white, and they were made to be easily seen in dark environments. What did Left 4 Dead 2 introduce? Brighter environments, daytime environments. The Parish, Dead Center, technically Swamp Fever and some of Hard Rain. So when you're in a really bright area, stream's still going, right? Yeah, okay, yeah. When you're in a really bright area, it's hard to see a ladder. But to have that out in the corner and trying to find it, it's obnoxious. There should have been at least 1 or 2 more climb ladders. Let me see something. But anyways, it's fun to go through. I would probably put this as an A tier. Even though I went on that rant. So we're going to chapter 3. This one is a long one. We went from short, kind of long, to what the fuck, why is this so long? What the hell's going on? The next 2 chapters are going to be that way. 1 second. Put this on. Okay. Hey, what's up, Moxie? Okay, anyways. So, I'm trying to remember where it starts. Okay, you start out under the bridge. I will say the beginning of chapter 3, I'm not the biggest fan of. But it goes from, it's kind of like uphill. It's going an uphill thing. And then when you, let's see, I'm trying to think, like there's good elements and bad elements to it. So it starts off, you're under the bridge, you go across, and then there's that dam, you go up the balcony and you have to go over the bus. I don't know what it is about that spot. Campaign or versus. People lose brain cells about how to get over that bus. Because you'll have 3 people waiting to jump over and one guy's like, oh, let me check in the room and get some supplies. Like, where are you going? Hold on. This is a technical point of no return where we have to go all the way back around to save your ass. And nobody coordinates in this specific spot, and it irritates the hell out of me. But as just a game thing, it's not too bad. You don't fucking say. Yeah. But it's fine on its own. That's just me speaking from years of versus experience. You get out in the open, there's the little torn up shed. You go across, there's the trailer you can go in. And then you go in the building, there's some supplies. You jump out from that little like hole in the house to the trailer. I think that's a really cool thing. It's a technical point of no return, but if you know how to jump back, you can save someone. And then you go through, there's the burned out building, there's the trailer. You go through, and of course, we had to have a point where it's just like, oh, we could hop this fence, but let's go in the sewer. Guys, a sewer. I haven't seen that before. Fuck that sewer, by the way. I hate that part. It's stressful. And they had to have some point where they're like, okay, there has to be a slowdown with water. And it's just a long, long tunnel, and you have to go and climb up. But it leads into a really, really cool showcase again. It's kind of like the Wandering Witches of Chapter 3 of Hard Rain, Chapter 2. Getting ahead of myself. But it's taking the element of something that is dangerous on its own, kind of, but people have gotten so used to it that the danger factor of it is like, if we would just run past it. We have the car lot. The car alarm thing is like, oh, I know exactly where the car alarm is. Whatever, we'll just run past it. Well, fuck it. Let's put 7 of them. Let's put 8 of them. They think it's not dangerous? Screw it. Let's just put a shit ton on the field and have at it. It's a minefield. Now, I can't remember if it's set spawns for the car alarms on that map or if they're just completely randomized. But most of the time, I don't remember a single time where at least one car alarm hasn't gone off. Unless you're playing expert and everyone's being really careful, there's always somebody that's either gets smoked into a car alarm or someone that's like shoots it. The car lot is always chaos, and I enjoy the chaos of it. But the fact that it's right after a point of no return where somebody's usually going to die trying to get in the sewer in that little hole, or the Charger and Spitter work together in that tunnel way, to deal with the car lot after that bullshit, it sucks. I wish the car lot was before the hole. I really wish that. I wish it was kind of reversed around, because to have a point of no return and then just, oh, if you fuck up, you're setting off a horde after someone already died. It just sucks. But the game does throw you a bone. It's like, okay, you just went through all that. You get up the ladder. There is an ambulance with a health pack. All car alarms go off at once. Hey, I don't do that. Well, let's have a grenade launcher. But there's the ambulance. It does reward you for getting past all that. And usually there's about 2 health packs, 1 or 2, some supplies, a grenade launcher. And then there's another point of no return. There's a bridge there. But that point of no return where you have to jump down from the bridge after it was bombed, there's not many spots for the infected to spawn as much as the sewer point of no return. So it's better. And then you go down, and then there's the cemetery. The cemetery, honestly, I feel like it should have been the beginning of this chapter or something like that, because it's such a good set piece, and it's an integral part of New Orleans culture is the cemeteries there. Honestly, that's another thing I want to visit while I'm there. But the fact that you have to go through so much just to experience this, it sucks. That, and the fact that in campaign, it literally is a maze. Because in Versus, it's just the set path. You go straight, you take a right, go wind around the little Washington Monument thing, take another right and a left. See, I've got that memorized in my head. But in campaign, there's going to be fences randomized completely to where it is a maze. And so it's going to be interesting to get through there. But don't get that in Versus. I wish that element was near the beginning of the chapter, because the level is called the cemetery, yet 10% of the level is in the cemetery. Most of it should have been called the compound lot, because that's where you spend most of your time because you're getting fucked over, or the sewer because you're stuck down there. But that's the fun part of it, is there's so much to it though. I'm not docking it for having all those elements. This chapter has so much going on. You have the sewer, the car lot, the cemetery. You have everything leading up to those points. The trailer going through the buildings. It's really good. Maze can be awful for speedrunning if you don't get the second pathway. That's very true. So I'm either going to, considering the fact that there's so much chaos to it, and there's so many elements, and it does give you extra health packs midway through, I'll put it A tier. A tier is reasonable. Now, the last legitimate chapter before we get into a crescendo. So this is the last full experience of trying to get to a safe room in the Left 4 Dead franchise. So, honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of this one. It feels like the weakest point of the Parish campaign to me. I do like the fact that you get to go through New Orleans the most effectively. There's a giant, it's kind of like an arena area, to where when you first start, there's just a giant towering buildings all around you where the infected can come down on you from anywhere. There's not much cover, so you can go in the building, but you can be attacked there. You go into another building, and you go on the balconies, and there's a point of no return this early. That could suck, but most of the time nobody gets there. There's cars everywhere in the streets. You go through the bar, go up. There's another point of no return where you have to drop down into the building, go through the alleyway, go up the building through a couple flights of stairs. Then you jump down to where the float is, and there's another point of no return. There's 3 points of no return in this map. It's kind of ridiculous how many there are. But yeah, it's basically just a lot of streets. And there's not much variety to it. When you had Chapter 3, you had an open area. You go through some buildings and whatnot, go through the sewer, go through the car lot, and then go through the cemetery. This one is just streets, and then, oh look, the Joker. You get to ride the Joker's head. But I like the Horde event. You start it up, and then you can just post up wherever you want in that area. Then you can speed run and jump onto the Joker's head and go across. But after that, there's still so much chapter that you have to get through. There's a point of no return in that area. That second half TK put it really well. The float part is either extremely easy or you get effed in the A. Because it's just insane. But the fact, I always forget there's so much to this chapter, because right after the float, everyone, again, every man for himself on that chapter. Everyone starts blitzkrieging because they're just trying to get through it because the Horde's probably still going on. And then you just have a couple copy-pasted streets. It feels verbatim because the street right after the float is almost the exact same street as the one right after you get from... it's the first street you get into. The float with the tank is annihilating. But yeah, that final area, honestly, it's not bad. I'll put it in B tier. It's a B tier chapter. But now, this finale is the only one of its kind, and it's how we end the entire series on. And it's a crescendo finale. There is no 2 tanks. There is no gas cans. There is no powering up a rescue vehicle. You just get to the bridge, say, hey, we're not infected, get us the hell out of here. And it's really fun. You started up, the bridge lowers, and the only objective is go. So the whole time, a lot of what Left 4 Dead has been about is do not run. Do not run, and do not separate from your team. And with every other finale, it's camp up here, chill, let's just wait it out. This one blew everything out of the water. It's like, we're just gonna go. Just go. Just get the hell out of here. We just gotta move. There is no slowing down. There is no camping. There is none of that. It changes everything. And I hate the fact that this is the only finale that does that besides Coldstream, which we didn't talk about Coldstream. Coldstream is a fan-made thing. It was not made by Valve. They did help. But the only official map that did this, where it was like, we just need to go. We're circumventing everything we've made. There is no camping. It pushes you to go. And honestly, it's what Fanboy has said. The finale pushes you to leave your friends for dead. The whole point of the game is called Left 4 Dead. Because the whole element is, if you run away from people and get pinned, you're fucked. You're left for dead. This one is like, you need to go. You need to go. You need to go. But you need to keep an eye on your friends too. There's no camping because in every other finale, it's just everyone's banded together until a tank spawns and everyone separates. This one forced you to actually go and move and do something instead of the same old bullshit. And Max said something too. It's left side is OP. There are 3 paths you can take basically throughout the whole way. And this is why it's one of my favorite finales to play in Versus, because it is charger hell. If someone has a charger, it's almost guaranteed that someone's going to get charged off because there's so many open areas. This finale causes so much chaos, but it's fun chaos. And if you get insta-killed, oh well, it's a fucking video game. Sorry, I got hiccups. I need to eat something. But it's a great finale. Honestly, there's just a lot to it. It's really short and sweet, but it's speedrunner's paradise, and it just changes up everything so much. You get to the end, and seeing the ending of them getting away in a helicopter and blowing up the bridge, and the tank spawning midway, right at where the two buses are, and there's the part of the bridge slanted. It's fun to cheese and go on top of the bridge and run across. It's honestly, that finale means a lot to me because that's how I started my channel. If I remember, it even has a speedrun achievement. Yep, it incentivizes you to speedrun, but I started my channel on that finale because I did a video talking about how to glitch and get out, do the shortcut in the sacrifice finale go, and that's my first video. And yeah, it's got a lot of good memories for me. So yeah, and I hate the fact that this is the only finale of its kind, but just for everything it is, S tier. So there we go. There is our comprehensive tier list of all the canon Left 4 Dead chapters. What do you guys think? Did I get anything wrong here? Do you like that the Crash Course is its only tier? What other finale could even do that? I know the remix for Dark Carnival that a fan did, once you're done with it, it's kind of a bum rush to get to the end. It's kind of like a hybrid of Crescendo and the typical finale, which is really cool. But it'd be really hard to emulate it. But it was a good end to the franchise. Dark Carnival finale is wrong. No. As cool as Dark Carnival's finale is, it needed more. Now, if you play Dark Carnival Remix, it makes the finale a lot more fun. I will say that. You don't agree with the plantation? Okay. Last Stand is sort of like that hybrid. Yeah, it is. That's true. Kinda. It does a gas can finale, and I think Last Stand's gas can finale. I know Max is going to be against me on this. He's a huge Scavenge fan. But the gas can finale for Last Stand, fuck that. There's gas cans at the bottom of the hill. I would rank the Last Stand finale in Crash Course tier. It's great, but it takes forever to get there. Is Last Stand canon? It's the way I would put it. Same with Coldstream. Last Stand is an alternate timeline to where the Left 4 Dead 1 survivors did not. The Blood Harvest, I think it was after Dead Air or something. No, the Dead Airplane crashed. Or it was the Dead Airplane crashed or the vehicle from Blood Harvest crashed, and they ended up in the Last Stand. So it's an alternate timeline. Same thing with Coldstream. I did a video about that a while back, talking about if it's canon. Basically, it would be right after Hard Rain or Swamp Fever or something. But it would be, if they didn't go to New Orleans, they went somewhere else. But yeah, I don't like gas can finales. Although Dead Center did gas can finales the best. Passing, not so much. But yeah, that is the tier list. Is there any other revertations? Tomorrow, I am going to be streaming. I haven't decided if it'll be Xbox or PC yet. If you're wanting to join me tomorrow, just let me know. I might do a poll on my Twitter asking if we should do Xbox or PC. I might do Xbox tomorrow and then PC, what is today? Thursday? Yeah, so PC Saturday. So just let me know. Max, you better join me. I've been trying to play with you for a while. Fanboy, you can join if you want. TK, I know you'll probably play tomorrow. But yeah, that is the tier list. And until next time, guys, I love you. And don't forget to stay well, and we'll see you tomorrow. I'm going to go drink something now because my voice is hoarse because we've been streaming for 2.5... This has been 2.5 hours? Holy shit. How do I talk about chapters for that long? It'll be 3 p.m. Central tomorrow. Alright, guys. I'll check you guys later. See you around.
When I hit this tape deck, it's all gonna start.
Get ready.
Woo! Goddamn right. Everyone ready for this shit? And it's about to get all Baghdad and shit. Heads up! Grabbing pills. I know one thing. I'm grabbing pills. Grabbing a shotgun. Shoot the clown. Thank Jesus. It's down. Boy, we straight? We're gonna be okay. Hold up now. Look alive. We're getting close to the mall.
We're at a plantation.
Oh, shit! Back it up! Yeah, baby! Hit it! Grab and puke! Incoming! Heads up!
Oh, this stuff sucks.
Oh, yeah. Anyone need some pills? Oh, hell. Gonna set some things right with this shit.